go with it. I think that'll.
Good morning. Welcome to the Griffin Board of Commissioners Workshop Meeting, July 26th. First item is to discuss the expansion of the Main Street District and Special Entertainment District and the Go Cup hours based on recommendations from the Main Street Board. Economic Development Director Jeremy Stratton will address. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Good morning, Commission. I was expecting the prayer and everything else beforehand, but we'll get right into it.
Go back to these tonight.
Okay, I appreciate it. Get the presentation up for me. Thank you. All right. Back in June, the Main Street Board, under the direction of Ross DeBono, met and we came up with 3 recommendations that we wanted to present to City Commission and for your discussion, and involve the Go Cup hours, the Special Entertainment District boundaries, and the Main Street expansion of its boundaries. So I'll go over each of the 3, and after each one, I'll pause and have any questions or discussion, and we'll go on to the next one. Okay, the Go Cup hours. Right now, Go Cup hours are from Monday through Sunday from 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. The Main Street Board is proposing that from Monday through Thursday, they remain from 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. And then from Friday through Sunday, they extended from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. And then on holidays that are recognized by the City of Griffin, they also are from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. So we just have an extension on holidays and for Friday through Sunday. Any questions on that?
From 12 p.m. No.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Is there any places that serves alcohol beverages here on Sunday? That late?
That is a good question. We can find out for you. That's a very good question.
Right now, you've got until 12 a.m. already on the current ordinance.
Yeah.
On all days of the week, so it'll just be expanding. Maybe at 12
I'm just
o'clock.
curious. I'm not.
Yeah, I mean,
it was Sunday included on that day to do.
it started at 12, right? Right now, it's currently 4 to 12.
Okay, I know that, in the grocery stores and stuff, they don't sell alcohol till after 12:30.
Yeah, something like that, 12:30, 1 o'clock.
So
That's correct. Under state law, you cannot sell packages until 12:30 on Sundays, but we did pass what they call the brunch bill back in November of 2020, 19, somewhere around there.
Yes.
Where you can sell if you're on premises, so a restaurant or a bar and a hotel, at 11. So you can sell that. Yes, ma'am, and that's what the Go Cup would be for, because you're walking around town. It's not meant for.
Okay, so but the Go Cup, you're asking for 12.
Yes,
Start
ma'am.
at noon.
Okay. Excellent. All right, the Special Entertainment District boundaries. Right now, they go from north to south, from Broad to Taylor Street, and from 10th Street to 4th Street. The Main Street Board is recommending that we expand them east 1 block to 3rd Street and south to Poplar Street. Let's turn on the map up here. The expansion will allow for possible Go Cups for Myrtle's Plot Twist, as an example, the Coke Building, Amigos, or whoever buys the hot dog building. Those are just some examples that could possibly use that if it's expanded. But essentially, we're just adding a block east and a block south. We run these boundaries by the planning department, the police department, and they had no issues with these suggestions. Any questions, concerns? Super. All right, we'll move on to the Main Street expansion. And this is just to basically create a rectangle. We had a little hole. Go to the map, next map. There we go. You see that we just had a little cutout that was not added as part of the Main Street boundaries, and we just thought it'd be a good idea to add that. And it's bounded on the north by Solomon, the south by Taylor, the west by 4th Street, and the east by 3rd Street. And I'll just show you some of the properties that are included, because there's some confusion of what properties are included. Go ahead. Let me run through those real quickly. So you just see some of the buildings that are in that block area that would be added. And there are some opportunities that be for renovating and rehabilitation, of course. Keep going. That's a property that the city owns as part of the wetlands area. Any questions on the addition of the Main Street boundary?
Everybody good to go? That's coming up tonight for a vote on the agenda.
Okay.
Everybody good to go?
The Main Street boundary and the go cut, you don't have an overlay of both of them.
No, the Go Cup is specific for the special entertainment district, which is smaller than the Main Street district.
Yeah, it's a subset.
Mayor, one other thing that I wanted to note,
Yes, ma'am.
we met with, we being myself and Jeremy, Heather Robinson, and Ross DeBono, met with Jessica Worthington, Elizabeth Elliott, and Coram Thornton, all with DCA, week before last, before I went out of town. And they gave us a redesignation work plan, and they expect that we can have that completed by the end of this year to be able to be a classic Main Street again instead of an affiliate, which they said will be one of the quickest redesignations that they've ever done. But they were pleased with what we've already accomplished so far from February to July. We actually are scheduling a Main Street 101 session in Griffin for anybody that would like to attend. It's tentatively scheduled for the 13th of September, but possibly the 8th, and we will let y'all know when we get those dates nailed down. But they gave us a lot of different things to do, a lot of which we thought we were already almost doing with our downtown redevelopment plan, so that may also sort of streamline this process. But they were pleased to see how willing we were to get that designation back. And Jeremy and Heather and Amanda have all worked very hard to make sure that our reporting is up to date and in compliance, and really showing what we do downtown. So I'm excited for that update.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Does anybody have any other questions of Mr. Stratton? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll see you tonight. Next item is to discuss potential SPLOST 2006 T-SPLOST and ARPA projects. City Manager Jessica O'Connor will address.
Good morning. You should have before you a Excel spreadsheet that Dr. Keller did for me, thank you, that shows lots of different projects that we have discussed at some point in time, whether it be with the 2016 SPLOST, whether it be through the American Rescue Plan Act, or whether it be through the transportation SPLOST that was most recently approved. What I sort of wanted to go over is just let you know what has already been approved, and then what is sort of a new thing that is being proposed that we want your feedback on, as well as sort of where we are on all of these projects. So first, I think the easiest thing to start with is probably the most historical, which would be SPLOST 2016. In that SPLOST, if you'll remember, you had several different projects, but the ones that are still remaining are your blight abatement, which we still have money there and are working on that expeditiously, as well as your transportation projects. Historically, you have waited until the end of collections to begin the transportation projects because that is just a lump sum that you put into the SPLOST, and so that way if there's any overages on bonded projects, you can use some of that money for those overages. But since collections have ended and most of those projects, with the exception of a couple issues at Historic City Hall, are complete, we think that now is the time to go ahead and proceed with those projects that we'd like to be from the transportation part of SPLOST 2016. So those would be 10 miles of milling and paving at $2 million. We have earmarked 1.5 million for State Route 155, but there is a question as to whether or not that was already done from the 2009 SPLOST, and so we're checking into that to see if it was not. Okay, so that will have to remain that 1.5 for State Route 155 relocation. The Hammond and Poplar intersection at $1.6 million. Culverts at $300,000, and then street striping 40 miles at $1.288 million. All of that was already sort of discussed back when the 2016 SPOS was adopted. Since that time, there have been a couple other projects, one in particular being the historic City Hall doors. Unfortunately, we tried to keep that as historic as possible in conjunction with the recommendations of our builder and our architect. And we still want to do that. However, the wooden doors, the way that that faces and the rain that we get, we're going to end up replacing those very consistently. Instead, we'd like to manufacture some doors that look wooden. It's not, of course, going to be historically accurate, but it will look as though it is historically accurate. In our opinion, that's going to be most historically accurate. You could try and protect it with, if you'll remember back in, I think when the police department was still there, they had a glass door in front of it. They had an awning at one time. 1910, none of that would have existed. And so we think to make it look as wooden as possible is going to be better than trying to add something to the facade of that building. They are expensive, but they're lifetime guarantee or a very extensive warranty. Dr. Keller has been working on that for us to make sure that that's not something we're looking at doing every couple of years, which will be the case now.
When you said they are expensive, how expensive?
They're $50,000.
Can you put the list,
Oh, you don't have the
can you
list?
put the list of things up on the screen? The screen. On the screen. Right.
You need the what on the screen?
The list of the projects. It's an attachment on item 2. You're gonna have to go to the city's website and put up the agenda packet up instead of through Granicus, I guess. All right, now that I know that, I'll be
Did
able
you
to.
say we will manufacture the doors ourselves?
No, no. Who is doing the doors?
They're 9.0 doors, that's not a standard industry door. The company we're looking at now will have them fabricated out of wood and laminate, somewhere up north, they'll 3D it, all that hocus pocus stuff. They've also recommended, which I used to be in that business, 9.0 door needs to be taken off, and adjusted and put back so that we make it.
Is something like that Hollywood?
No, it won't be polywood, it'll be wood. It's not gonna be foam. We cannot get metal or a manufactured laminate right now. And the lead time's still gonna be about 20 weeks.
Oh, 20?
All right, so that would come out of just the bulk SPOS that we have left, since that was a bonded project, so that would have to be completed. The landfill paving, because it is transportation, we could pull that out of the excess SPOS, because also to note, if you look at the very bottom, if it's, you've got a little over 5 million that is over what we estimated to actually bring in. So you have about $5 million there. Of course, Marcus always reminds me that our projects aren't done, so we don't know what excess is at this point, because you could have overages. For example, Hammond Poplar might be 2 million and not 1.6. So if you're starting that project, you're obviously going to finish that project, which means you may not have 5 million for just anything, because you may have to finish that with some of that excess. However, we are comfortable going ahead and suggesting the landfill paving. In my conversations with the owner of K&G Patton, we are losing their business because the Amwaste has bought the landfill in Barnesville. It is paved, and so if it rains for any length of time, or really just a day, nobody's coming. It ruins trucks. They have a hard time getting in and out. Mayor Holberg mentioned that he can't go if it's been raining because of their pickup truck and dump. So this would actually increase revenue and would still be around the road that we would go for the expansion. So it would not just be wasted after we expand the landfill. Also, same thing with the transfer station. If you have a smaller supplier or somebody that has the ability to travel, they're going to travel because our yard is not paved. And so we have the same issues there. So we're asking to be able to pull excess SPOS for the landfill paving and the transfer station paving. The one that has come up most recently with you all is the second entrance for Ells Way. We're looking at about 500,000 right now, but that engineering is not done. So we're still discussing what our options are there, and we'll bring something back to you, but want to make sure that we want to proceed, because that's going to be about $500,000, we think, at this point.
Plus, I've got 2 pieces of property I got to acquire.
Right. So that was not something that we had planned on, but something that we think will help in that neighborhood. So if we want to move forward with that, we're suggesting that we take that from SPOSS as well. We know that we went over in our historic city hall expenses based on what was budgeted, so that will have to be refunded as well. Two new things that you may or may not know about is that the Welcome Center needs some work as well. We have $200,000 for encapsulation and $38,000, which is what we're really considering to be excess lost money, because we do have more of that coming in. It's mainly taking it from fund balance though. So we would like approval to do that. The American Rescue Plan Act, most of those projects that you see towards the bottom of the spreadsheet, you have already approved, and some of them have already been completed. The two new ones that we removed from budget in order to make the budget balance was the elevators for One Griffin Center, and then the parking deck for this building as well. Our parking deck is in disrepair and is ended its useful life in the next 4 to 5 years if we do these repairs. If we don't do these repairs, it has already ended its useful life. So we were asking to take 1.2 for those two projects from the ARPA funds. Once you add up all of those ARPA projects, you have $6.83 million. If you'll remember, we received over $8 million. We do already have that second tranche in the bank, so we are comfortable with saying we received $8 million at this point, which is why it's now time to move forward on those projects as well, if you are in agreement with using that money for those things. The one that has never been discussed, and that's why it sort of has the asterisk by it, was in the budget as well for a play structure. Really two play structures, one at Raymond Head and one at City Park. We took that out because we still weren't sure through service delivery strategy negotiations what would be happening there, but it sounds pretty sure that we will be keeping City Park. They always said you're gonna keep Pocket Park, so we assumed that would have been Raymond Head anyway. But do we want to put play structures back? If so, it is not budgeted. So either we can wait and see, we can go ahead and pay for it with American Rescue Plan Act money, or we can try and get it in the budget next year. Those are your options, but I think it's pretty safe to say at this point that we will be responsible for those parks. So what kind of parks do we want? So those are your American Rescue Plan Act projects. Are there any questions or concerns about those?
Can we get some grant money for the playground equipment?
We can attempt to, yeah. And if we have matching funds, a lot of times that goes a lot better, so we can certainly look into that.
If we were to go ahead and put it in, could that be used to reimburse that or?
Normally
You know,
not. Grants are-
It's not that big amount of money that you're gonna get. It's worth going after. But you're talking right, at today's market, if you're lucky, $200,000 a play structure. It ain't cheap.
You said we had set aside, enough money for 10 miles of paving.
In your SPOSS, your money for transportation from SPOSS. This is not T-SPOSS.
Okay, so we'll have more money for paving.
Yes, ma'am. So you have $11 million set aside for milling and paving for T-SPOSS.
And we also have about $5 million left over on 2016 SPOS. Once these projects move forward and see where the actual numbers come in. So we have up to potentially $5 more million that we can designate for paving or sidewalks in the current 2016 SPOS.
Yeah, you're in a very favorable position in regards to what money you have allocated for transportation projects. So now that we sort of know, we have a map already of what the county plans to do year 1 through 5, I think. For their roads, we have that what's contiguous to the city, as well as the 3 sidewalks that they've told us are contiguous. So my recommendation is we need to look at, and I brought it with me, it's a little bit difficult to discuss at this point because the way Robotics did it, is they did it very detailed. So you may have a link, let's say, for example, of Carver Road, which a 5 is your worst in a road rating and your 1 is the best. So this portion of Carver Road, which is 31 feet, ranked 4.33. You'll have another section of Carver Road that ranked a 4, which is 22 feet, and a 4, which is 21.83 feet. Obviously, I don't think it is a good idea, and I would not recommend that we pave it by feet like that. So it's easy to sort of say, let's take the worst roads, the 5 being the worst, and let's pave with our transportation money. Let's go ahead and pave all the 5s and 4s. because they end up being about 2 miles. But if you do that, you're missing portions of streets. So where it's gonna take us a little bit of time, if you're willing to proceed in that way and start with 5s and 4s, to then piecemeal the portions that are somehow better because maybe they got patched for the water main break or something. And put those in there as well to see how many miles we get. I don't think it's smart to start at south end of Carver, skip 20 feet just because it's a 3.97 and not a 4, and then go another 20 feet. That's gonna be a lot more costly and just seems silly. So it's not as easy as just looking at 5s and 4s, but that is our recommendation to begin there. GIS was also able to break it up by district. It is pretty all over the place, so everybody's gonna have paving done. We're not gonna see a certain area that gets nothing if we start like that. But that's how we would like to put it out for bid, and get all of those together to proceed that way. Then, of course, we come back and y'all would approve it within the contract as to what we finalize that we do. So, yes, ma'am.
What is going on between Lane Street and, is it West? Where that big ditch is? I saw it was blocked off.
Oh, there was culvert going in, ma'am. It was flooding and we replaced that culvert on West Street. It's
Okay.
part of the GFA fund project that we did for stormwater.
Uh-huh.
That culvert had to be replaced. It was backing up water on people.
Okay, and also I had asked years ago about the drop off on West Street, across the street. What's the status on that?
That's the quarter west of North Avenue,
Mm-hmm.
the big ditch, drainage ditch.
The last I recall, I'd have to go back and look. That property is owned by multiple peoples and the
It's
grade
owned by
elevation.
multiple people.
Ma'am?
It's owned by multiple people.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember now. It's been a while since we had that conversation, but the ditch is owned by multiple people and about the only thing to do is spend an enormous amount of money trucking dirt because we couldn't mass balance the grade site on that. Basically, I know what you're saying, but it's a
Okay.
whole.
When you say, a mass amount of money, how mass are we talking?
I don't know, I'd have to go, I can look back for you, Mr. Ward, but it was a chunk, it was an engineering fee, we had looked at that before, trying to do something with it.
I understand what you're saying, and I heard what you said, and I heard what you said then. But I'm in my 21st year, and there's been no movement. There's children play, it's not one of the best. I'm sure the city does not get a whole lot of income from that. But after this amount of time, I feel like there's something that could have been done there. Can be done.
Have staff look at it from a public works and stormwater standpoint and see exactly what's going on, and then we can come back and let you know what we find and what, if we need to proceed with engineering again, or how we need to do that. But I'm even unfamiliar with West Street, so I'll be taking the job.
Yeah, well, I got a suggestion for you.
Oh, it's,
Okay.
I got a suggestion for you about something in that area that I kind of experienced this weekend.
Okay,
This a private conversation.
okay. All right, let's see, so we were.
About roads.
Yes, in our roads, so the $2 million billing and paving from the transportation portion of SPOS 2016, I would suggest we take the worst roads from Robotics survey that they did last year, so it's very current, and go through that and try and get all the 5s and 4s together, but not just the pieces, and add in whatever the other portions are and see how many miles that gets us. If we're over 2 miles, I think that's fine. We've got some of that excess money. And then we'll also have T-SPOS coming in. If you'll remember, we did not bond any of our T-SPOS projects like the county did because we already had $9 million reserved in SPOS. So we didn't want to pay bond fees just to get money in quicker when we can sort of wait as we get it and have pay-go money. So we did forego bonding to wait on it since we had this money already sitting.
Hey Jessica, is that just roadways, or does that also include streets and residential, or is it just the roadway terms?
We only have streets. Cities are streets.
Oh, okay, right.
Counties are roads, and then state is highways.
Okay.
Federal is
So
interstate.
some residentials might be included.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just for instance, you start with Alice Street, Armstead, Thomas Drive, South 14th, West College, Lucky Street, East Broad, South 9th, East Poplar, Hilltop, Southern Drive, Gate Ridge Road, Carver, so most of it for us is going to be residential. Maplewood is bad. So, and I can share all of this with you all if you'd like. It's somewhat hard to read. We have two versions. One is the numerical order, starting with the worst. Again, you sort of have to look at both of them, because if I want to do Alice, since it's the very worst one, I'm also gonna need to look at it in alphabetical order to see how much else of Alice there would need doing, because that's only 16 feet. So Armstead is 23 feet. That might be all Armstead is. So you just are gonna have to compare both. But I can send you all that so you can sort of see where we are, and then we'll come back with the final sort of bid document as to how that went out to show you what's going to be done, if you are okay proceeding that way.
So to get consensus on the list of 2016 SPOS projects, is everybody good to go in terms of moving forward with those? And so that we want to start spending that hard-earned money, and make that happen.
Okay?
I'll go along with it as long as we address the concerns that Ms. Ward has about West Street. We want that to be included in it. And if,
So look at that for SPOS 2016.
I would like us to, if it's something,
West Street can be paved. What happens inside the boundaries of that property isn't classified for transportation.
So everybody good to go in terms for the staff to move forward on the 2016 SPOS expenditures? Okay, so
And are you okay with moving forward with the road selection by rating?
Yes. 5 meaning those are the worst.
everything going down, and then we'll have more money coming in, and so we'll just keep prioritizing moving down the list in blocks of 2 million, 3 million as the money comes in.
Well, as it relates to our rating, and like you said, kind of looking at the entire street, how does that factor in with what the county has?
I'm not sure how they,
It's normal, there's 10 streets, we just have to look at it.
Okay.
yeah, well, okay, I see what you're saying. In regards to what they're paving contiguous to the city, yeah, well, I would suggest we include that as well. I think off the top of my head, a lot of it is like Carver and Pine Hill, and they're already considered some of, and then I think Spalding Street
So I was
coming
gonna
in.
say, so just an additional variable.
Yes,
there.
then we'll also
And
include.
Carver Road too, which is not on their list, which our part's falling apart, and theirs is too.
So I mean, we need to also go back to them and let them know this was in our worst list. We'd ask that you put this on yours too. Otherwise it's gonna, again, look silly to have half of Carver Road paved.
Question. Okay, I heard you say that Hill Street was one of the streets. Is that,
Take a look, it needs to be.
that's what I was wondering, I know when we were trying to do sidewalks over there, that we didn't have access to, be able to do it because it was the county's. But even though the road is in the city, the part in the county is in terrible shape.
Yes, ma'am.
So how,
That's a conversation that we probably have to have with the county is one of those, because I was talking to Gwen and they were talking, because I said we were potentially gonna pave our piece of gravel all the way from town up to where you, Spelman, up to Lincoln up there. But that's as far as that conversation went so far. But that needs to be had because it really, once you hit Lincoln and you go out of town, it's pretty good.
The sidewalks are on their master plan, so I know that that is in their plan to do.
Is that new sidewalks or repairing old?
No, for them going outside of the city limits on North Hill from Talladega to, East McIntosh?
Traffic circle north.
Yes, is something that they did not do. So they have that in their plan to do. I don't know timing wise, so that I've got a note to ask about that one.
Did the county do a similar study?
Yes.
Yeah, a couple of years back,
So
In
there's.
regards to their roads,
the roads,
Yes.
So we're all good to go on the SPOS projects, 2016. On the ARPA projects, we're all good to go, including moving forward with the Ellis connectivity to,
Ellsway will come out of SPOS 2016. You've got elevator, parking
Yeah, okay,
deck,
so that's
sort
a
of the
SPOS
new
project.
ones.
and then on the ARPA money, we're all good to go in regards to those, including doing the playground. So
And then
T-Splost.
T-Splost. So these were all, T-Splost is a little different. You did in your referendum actually designate projects for T-Splost. So you have milling and paving, the State Bank Alley project, the College and Kincaid intersection, sidewalks, Taylor Street, streetscape.
You said $1 million or 11 million?
11 million on milling and paving.
Okay.
Sorry, 1.5 on State and Bank, 2 million on College and Kincaid improvement, 1 million on sidewalks, 1 million on the Taylor Street streetscape. We offered to give and agreed to give Orchard Hill 300,000 to help pave some roads out there. And then the golf course culverts where you enter and exit, so those entry and exit points are awful. So we have moved forward on a few of those things, and you approved at the last meeting the State and Bank Alley surveying and title work, which is about $40,000 because it's going to be very odd. So we asked them to not just go horizontal, but also go up because of those buildings. And of course, the safety of the pedestrians and the ability of our trucks and fire trucks in particular to get back there because of all of the wiring going across. We are gonna ask to have that removed and put underground. So that is a big expense as well, but we already have some concerns about title and who owns what. Drew thinks even some of the just sort of vacant spots that you can see on the tax assessor's website may have been old coal rails, which is how the businesses got their coal for heat. So we're not real sure who owns what. So we're having title work and a survey done at the same time to sort of tell us, here's what is parceled and here's who owns it. So that's moving forward. Of course, we're trying to do that in conjunction with the brewery project back there. So lots of things happening there. And then Taylor Street right on the front is something that needs to occur as well. So all of that, again, since we didn't bond it, we're sort of doing that as we go, but we can go ahead and move forward with all of the SPLOST 2016 projects and then start working on those as more money comes in.
Jessica, on the golf course culverts, is that replacing both the entrance and exit?
We budgeted for that, but engineering wise, we're not sure yet.
Would it not be financially beneficial for us to just do one?
You would have to, potentially, but you're going to have to expand one, which means you're tearing down the old, what is that thing? Tank. Which is going to be very expensive, and we actually use that as storage, so we're gonna have to build something back for them to store equipment in. So it just depends, but we're going to look at that, yes.
One of the challenges on that is ingress egress. When you have a full Saturday, well, we're full most of the time now. One ingress egress is probably not the best way. If for some reason a car gets burned up, blocked right there, you're stuck. And that's kind of like building a subdivision. You really need to have an ingress and egress at two different locations.
So we'll wait for staff recommendations on that.
Yeah, this is just sort of a reminder, we really don't
Just
need
threw it in there.
anything for T-Splost right now, except since we were talking about all of them, to sort of let you know. And to know if you're comfortable moving forward with the road assessment that way, then we would suggest doing that throughout the milling and paving, because we'll be doing a lot of it in the next couple of years. And then the street striping, of course, with SPLOST, that is something that we will reserve until closer to the end. We obviously don't want to go stripe the street and then pave it 2 years later and have to redo that. So there's a lot of timing stuff that we'll be looking at as well, but just to give you an update on where we are.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You said it appears that we're gonna be keeping City Park. Have we done anything as a study or to check those trees? Those trees fall really fast out there.
Yes, we do have a tree survey that was completed and you received, what, a couple months ago?
Yeah, we're still getting the final information on that, but the park was included on this past tree study, so yeah, we've got information on it.
Those will be coming down as assessed.
Any other questions or comments on these matters?
Where is the money exactly, looking at this again, the money you were talking about paying for solid waste and
We're suggesting that we use the excess SPLOST money for that, because when we approved the referendum in 2015 that was voted on, you had the ability to sort of break up any excess as to where you wanted it to be spent. but you chose to allocate all of it to transportation, which means we can only use it for transportation. So that paving is considered transportation to move the vehicles in and out of those facilities. So it fits there without having to have it in the budget.
Anything else? Very good. Good job. Right, final item for the day is for the morning is consider executive session pursuant to CGA 501421 for the purpose of consulting and meeting with legal counsel pertaining to pending potential litigation, settlement claims, administrative proceedings, and other judicial actions brought or to be brought by or against the agency or the officer or employee of which agency or the office or employee may be directly involved pursuant to CGA section 5014(1)(b) for the purpose of authorizing negotiations to purchase, dispose of, or lease property. We have a motion to go into executive session. Mr. Tinsley with motion, second by Ms. Murray. All in favor, please join us.
I get tired of being the first one. I get in here. When I'm on this.
I'm gonna get stuff right after tonight.
Jessica.
I don't have to make a servant in the block.
Okay, and I'm gonna be on my way to whatever, I guess the regular.
And I would just build $2 million blocks.
Thank you for letting me know, and I'll see.
Hey, you got your money yet?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Like, where's Sue? I'm like, I have a driver, take her. She had 1 hour.
I try to keep it as short as fast as I can read.
Pretty well last time.
Thank you.
I know.
See you all tonight, Susan. I've got to, I still haven't unpacked. I have all my stuff in my bag. I'll get it to you tonight.
That sounds good, thank you. The hotel did not send me any receipts, so that would be great.
For anybody or is it?
No, for anybody.
Oh, really? Okay.
I had to call and ask.
They asked me, do you want to email? I said, yes. So,
They didn't
but they gave the same rate, that.
Hey, Susan.
Will you turn the lights on?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.